Alright guys, it is time to do the final tier list because the new season is coming out very soon for Marvel Rivals. You've got a little bit of time left, so if you want to rank up, these are the characters that I recommend. I'm going to be doing 2 tier lists in one video. I want to start off with the top 500/2, the top 1%, because most of the players, well, you're going to be facing off against each other. Pretty much what it comes down to is no one really plays the Human Torch or the Mr. Incredible. And then these are the categories over here in like the C tier, where I'm going to say that like the player is maybe doing like unranked to GM or unranked to top 500, playing like a very specific character, because let's be honest, they're not as good as other options that we will be talking about. It really comes down to there's just so many better options in most situations versus playing these characters. Now next up into the B tier over here, I have a lot of the characters that are pretty good choices. I mean, if the players made it to the top 1%, which at the moment is like higher in the Celestial area up until obviously top 500, one above all. These characters are still a very good choice because the player is simply just good at the game. Now, over in the A tier over here, this is where I have like all around, usually when you see these characters, they are very good, and a lot of times characters around this area can start to get banned depending on if they notice a certain player. I feel like with Magic and Spider-Man, it's kind of like whoever has the better one usually wins, but Spider-Man gets actually banned quite often. It's because the sports don't want to deal with this character, and Namor, strangely enough, he's actually kind of a flanker as well, which is very, very interesting. But nonetheless, I would say most people would say, okay, that's a pretty solid list over here, but what about like the OP S tier ones? Okay, so in the OP area, this is what I've got. I've got Wolverine, because he's banned literally 99 to 100% of the games. It's just always banned Wolverine. I don't like playing tank if Wolverine exists in the game. It almost feels like if he exists, there is just no chance that people want to go ahead and play tank, and that's kind of a problem because, well, people already don't want to play tank, to be honest, in most scenarios. Obviously, as you climb higher ranks, people are more so willing to fill because they don't want to lose their rank. But I want to say, when Wolverine is active, it doesn't really matter how good your team is. If the Wolverine gets the secure hit on the tank or whatever he's going for and pushes them, it's so hard because he just is able to eliminate them so dang fast. I know the Thing came into the game and he's supposed to kind of deal with Wolverine a little bit, but again, this list over here is specifically covering what I want to consider the top 1% of players. So Celestial Plus, this is like the top 1% of gamers here. This is kind of the tier list. Now, for the rest of the players, let me go ahead and hop into that list because it is quite different. But again, no one plays these characters, which is actually the same with the lower sections of the game, which is no one really plays specifically the Human Torch as well as Mr. Incredible. But what it comes down to is these characters have technically received buffs, but I think a lot of players just don't enjoy these characters. It could be due to the characters' designs. Next up, I want to go into the F tier. By the way, this part of our tier list is what majority of players will be playing at, which is bronze to GM, because honestly, it's pretty easy to get to GM now. I've done it so many dang times, and I want to say that like even in the lower ranks, I very rarely will see these characters. When they first came out, everyone was playing them, and then no one plays them anymore. Genuinely, these characters need some sort of reworks or buffs in the game to make them see a little bit more play. But nonetheless, this is in the F tier, as in majority of the time when you have these characters, right, when they're on your team, again, this is bronze to GM. If you've got a Spider-Man, if you've got a Magic over here, they are usually turbo feeding. They are 0 and 10 on your team. The Spider-Man, Black Widow, 0 and 10. It's just always very, very common. I've done unranked to GM so many dang times, and I'm telling you, so frequently, although we just have a Black Widow clip over here, most of the time, this set of characters, they're like usually like hyper carries, right? Like for example, I would say Black Panther, Widow, Spider-Man, Magic, these are all like hyper carry heroes. At the higher ranks, these are fantastic. But for some reason, at the lower ranks of the game, they always go 0 and 10 on your team or 2 and 13. But the enemy that's probably smurfing or like they've got like a quad stack, they're all popping off. They're doing amazing. And that is one thing I've definitely noticed with like these characters in general. But Adam Warlock and Loki, I want to put them in under throw category, especially at the lower ranks of the game. Obviously, once you're starting to get Diamond, it adjusts a little bit, but I want to make this list for majority of the player base, which again, majority of the player base sadly is actually considered in bronze, but for the most part it's because you don't actually hit like the rank queue because there's no like placements, right? But for some reason in particular with these two characters, these two supports, they just want to play DPS, and then they're like, I'm going to lock in these characters, and they just don't heal. And then like Loki, every single time for whatever reason, up until like Diamond, they always copy the DPS ults, always, and they're always DPSing, and I don't get it. It's just something that exists that I've noticed in the game for sure. And then there's other characters like Scarlet Witch. It's just, this character needs like a rework or a buff. Hopefully she'll get some buffs in Season 2. They've actually nerfed Iron Fist quite hard with the newer changes. He has more survivability, but honestly, there's just much better options majority of the time. When I look at these characters, these are usually considered throw picks where people will say, hey, can you swap? Iron Man may be a little bit better, but I don't know, for whatever reason, it is specifically Iron Man at the lower ranks, because Iron Man and Spider-Man are like the most popular like characters in like the Marvel universe when it comes down to kids playing. And I think that that's the reason why, especially if you go check like stats on different websites, and you're looking at like, win rates, these characters, for some reason, it's usually because they have like 4 or 5 DPS. And I don't know, again, Spider-Man, Iron Man, again, at the lower ranks, really bring down the characters. It's because, again, kids love Spider-Man, kids love Iron Man. It's just a thing. Nonetheless, let's go into like characters that are like okay sometimes-ish, but I just think that there's kind of better options. Mantis, unfortunately, has kind of just fallen down, even at the higher ranks of the game, but at the lower ranks of the game, she just loses out on a lot of value. People tend to not know who to damage boost. The answer is you want to boost up the Black Widow or the Spider-Man, and then the rest of the time you want to heal your teammates. You don't really want to be, let's say, boosting up a character that cannot utilize that ability to maybe get like a combo off. You can totally boost up a Punisher, and you're sure you get a little bit more damage, but turbo feeding into the ultimates is definitely a bad thing, kind of, depending on, you know, what you're doing with the Punisher. Sometimes, like Moon Knight and Punisher in particular, but I want to consider Punisher actually a little bit higher here, again, at the lower ranks. But Moon Knight specifically, he just turbo feeds the enemy their ultimate charge. That's one thing that is very, very bad. Hawkeye is just going to be inconsistent, again, if we're looking at, like, bronze to GM. It's just something that happens, right? And then also, Thor, I want to say he can be kind of good just because there's, like, the lack of tanks existing in the game, especially at the lower ranks. People are like, nah, dude, 5 DPS, lock in, brothers. But, like, Thor doesn't really work as a solo tank. Sometimes, like, people will just go and be like, oh, we got a tank, we're good, man. No, it's not enough. You can't solo tank. Same thing with, like, the Thing, which is kind of what I want to talk about now, which we're looking at kind of the B tier. So, like, these characters are very solid overall. I want to say that you still get a lot of good value, even if the player isn't, like, optimizing the characters correctly. You get really good value. There's actually 2 areas in B tier because I just didn't want to make the row super long, so I decided to kind of put 2, if that makes sense. These are still both in the B tier here, but I would say these characters are very good. Like Hela is very, very, very solid. However, the one thing that I've noticed with Hela is you require aim. With Luna Snow, a lot of times I've noticed for some reason people pop ult way out of position a lot of times. It's still a good character. I honestly want to consider this character in A tier, but you do require aim, and at the lower ranks there's just another better option, which is something I'm going to be talking about. But on top of that, I want to put Groot over here as well. Actually, I want to bring this a character over here. This character used to be really good in the game, and then after they kind of nerfed the Gamma, he's definitely kind of lost some of the favor, but I think Hulk is still a pretty solid option. I mean, everything in B tier is pretty solid, and the reason why I'm putting like Rocket up actually pretty high is because a Rocket that's just hitting right clicks the whole game gives your team immense value at the lower ranks of the game. Specifically, just being able to throw on that amplifier, and sometimes, I'll be honest, people just kind of throw it out in response to another ult. Like, if Luna ults on the enemy team, sometimes people are like, alright, I'm gonna pop Rocket ult. It doesn't work a lot of the times, but especially just because of the revive, it does give you just a lot of value overall in the game. Storm, I think, is still a pretty solid choice, but once you go into the higher ranks, and we'll compare it like both the lists side by side here in a moment, but specifically Storm, at the higher ranks, Hela just dominates the game, and it's also like Winter Soldier, Hela are just so powerful, and on top of that, people just have better aim, and a lot of flyer characters in general, it's just that they're a little bit harder to heal. I mean, you throw an Invis Woman shield in front of like a flyer like Storm, and she can absolutely shred, but again, it requires a little bit of babying, pocketing, so to speak. But I want to say that Storm is still a very good character. Even Captain America just having tanks are really good, but there's just better options, which is what I want to talk about. Moving into the A tier, I put Cloak and Dagger and Punisher here in the A tier because this is just a really good, solid, consistent amount of heals and damage, even though I will say that the problem with Punisher is that he does kind of feed into ult, kind of like Moon Knight, but Moon Knight's ult got nerfed really hard. He used to be way better, but Punisher's ult at the lower ranks of the game, up until GM, like you can see I'm playing, this is a GM something game, I don't remember the number off the top of my head, but specifically having the Punisher He can output just so much damage, and then the ults just pop off at the lower ranks for sure, up until like Diamond. I mean, that ultimate, you throw the grappling hook and you just spray down, especially because, I don't know, for whatever reason, the Rocket combo is really good, and there's so many people that just love Rocket Raccoon. They just love him. Unfortunately, we got one shot over there by Hawkeye, but nature of the game, right? But for some reason, people love Rocket Raccoon, so I want to put him up higher because that team-up combo, it's almost like an ultimate. Like, it is so dang powerful to shred tanks, and at the lower ranks, people don't play tanks, so early on, you just throw on the Rocket thing. If they don't have, like, a shield tank, which is very common in the lower ranks, he just shreds so fast, and I think that's why I want to put Punisher. And Cloak is just very consistent heals, and at the lower ranks, this character, it just gets ult so dang fast. And I think that the character is just overall probably one of the easier supports because there's no aim. That's why I actually consider it better than Luna. Again, for beginners, like if I was to teach a beginner, like what character should I learn to play and I want to play support? I mean, Rocket and this character, they just output so much numbers, and sometimes at the lower ranks, numbers mean everything. Technically at the higher ranks, like you technically want to kill the target with the least amount of damage as possible and like the fastest time to kill. So as in, if I can kill a target in 1 second versus 5, it's way better because you're not building up that support ult charge. But at the lower ranks of the game, you'll have to kind of factor that in as well. Sometimes the ult usage is a lot worse at the lower ranks, but so is like the ultimate usage on like the DPS or the duelist here. Now, up into the S tier over here, I feel like these characters literally win so many games by people just picking them, even if they're not good with them. And it's simply because like Namor can get people that for some reason want to flank with a lot of other characters. And then on top of that, it's just very consistent damage overall. And again, it kind of goes with the same mindset. People just don't want to play tanks. That's the reality of the game. And you can absolutely shred targets when there is no tank with this character. And then specifically Magneto and Doctor Strange, absolutely hard carry games, especially if you can get 2 of them. Even if you're not really good with the character and you're like, I really want to try to get to gold to try to get my rewards, right? Because a lot of people that are watching tier lists, they just want to get that reward. Hey, brother, this is like the characters that I recommend if you're like, I just want to get gold, man. If you're playing tank, these are the characters. If you're playing DPS, I would really recommend Namor because it's very consistent. However, Cloak and Dagger, as far as like support goes, is the one that I'd probably recommend the most. But like if you really want to get like the easiest wins, these characters to get to gold are probably my highest recommendations because the shields just give so much value, especially because you can throw on that shield just maybe block an ultimate or something. It's just these characters are just so good at the lower ranks of the game. Again, even if people don't know how to play them. Now, for the final, the most OP character in the entire game at the lower ranks, I gotta give it to the Winter Soldier. This character, even on my other list, right? I consider this character incredibly powerful. And the reason why this character is just so powerful at all the ranks is because you don't even need to hit your shots to actually gain the shield. The character has a really good ultimate, has good potential to kill through even ultimates, because if you pull the player to the side, or again, you can interrupt ultimates. At the high ranks of the game, this character absolutely hard carries games. Same thing with like Wolverine, but Wolverine is banned like almost every single time. But you can notice like the difference here. Like Wolverine, I put like throw on the lower ranks. If you're like in like bronze, silver, gold, Wolverine is usually a throw pick. But again, at the higher ranks of the game, there is quite a big difference in terms of some of the characters, but there are still definitely some similarities. But as far as it goes, yeah, I would say if you really want to rank up, even though I said Namor is probably one of the easier characters, this character is usually banned. But again, if the character is not banned, it's just so consistent because the shots are so dang generous on this character. But anyways, I want to give you guys my updated tier list. Let me know, guys, if you disagree with anything. Was I wrong on anything? Let me know down below. And again, I kind of made 2 lists because, again, at the higher ranks of the game, it is so much different because, you know, if I'm in the lower ranks, if I'm doing another one of my unranked GM just trying to play one character games, like if there's someone that picks in like, you know, Black Widow or like Black Panther, I'm literally laughing. It's a free win up until like you get to Celestial. But once you get to Celestial, dude, like a couple nights ago, I was playing, and the Black Panther just literally carried the entire team. The support was dead 24/7, and like, even if you try to help your support sometimes, they are so good at those characters. It's, again, if you're looking at like very high rank, again, we're looking at Eternity, Celestial, well, high Celestial, Eternity, you know, one above all. In the top 1%, the Black Panthers and Spider-Mans absolutely can hard carry a lobby, whereas in the lower ranks, sure, sometimes they can pop off on certain games, but it's a little bit inconsistent. Just like in Overwatch, if you ever seen people play like Doomfist, at the higher ranks, Doomfist is absolutely destroying lobbies, but at the lower ranks, it's like, yo, Doomfist, can you please swap, man? We need a shield. So there's definitely a difference there. But anyways, that's going to wrap things up. This is my final tier list for Season 1.5. But if you guys enjoyed it, drop a like. If you're new here, hit subscribe if you want to see the updated tier list for Season 2 once it drops. But that's my tier list. Let me know guys your thoughts. Anyways, peace out. I'll catch you guys in the next video. Have a good one.